More reaction out of the president-elect's speech on his stimulus package and its prospects for quick passage in the U.S. Congress. Joining me now, two veteran members of the House. Democrat George Miller is the chairman of the House Education and Labor Committee. New Jersey Republican Congressman Scott Garrett is a member of the House Financial Services Committee and the Budget Committee. Thanks to both of you. I appreciate you joining us here on Money in Politics. Congressman Garrett, I'll start with you if I could. Were you encouraged by what you heard today from the president-elect or discouraged?
Well, before his remarks, I was encouraged that he was talking about trying to address the unemployment numbers that we're going to see going forward and the tough economic situation that Americans are suffering across the country. A little bit concerned that we're not hearing more on the how do we get the economy going again, how do we create more private sector jobs, and so much more of the what we've had in past years, and that is just more government spending and more public sector jobs. That's not going to really turn things around as some of us would like to see.
Chairman Miller, did you hear something different today from the president-elect?
Well, I think we heard his concern about an economy, as was suggested by the economists that we heard from yesterday in our hearing. Republican economists, conservative economists have said the American economy is shutting down. And what you saw the president-elect address was the need for us, the Congress, to move very quickly on a stimulus package that will create, as he is attempting to do, 3 million private sector jobs in the economy. At the same time, try to stop the layoff of hundreds of thousands of teachers that are now envisioned when we look at state budgets, and interrupt the education of our young children, to put money into highway projects, into port projects, into waterway projects, into sewer systems, into water systems, and hire, those are all private sector jobs, and put people back to work so families can have some income so they can maintain their household needs during this very difficult financial crisis in the United States.
Chairman Miller, how heavy a lift is this going to be? I mean, the president-elect is urging you all to move quickly on this, but we're even hearing from some Democrats today that they're not totally thrilled with some of the tax provisions in here, perhaps suggesting a rebate check would be a better way to approach this.
Well, I don't think, we did a rebate check because there was a different view of the economy at that time that we needed to get the consumer further into that calendar year. We did that, but what we're now hearing from the economists is the most important thing we can do is for the government to spend the money to make investments in the American economy, in public works projects, in technology, in education, because there's nobody else to drive this demand. We need to create demand in the American economy so that the people will once again start hiring workers and putting products out into the marketplace.
Congressman Garrett, how about that? We heard ourselves from Marty Feldstein, who was Ronald Reagan's chief economic advisor yesterday. He says he basically agrees with President-elect Obama. Something big is needed here, and the government needs to provide the fuel.
Yeah, well, something big is needed, and we do need more jobs. But when Obama talked about 3 million jobs, he didn't say 3 million private sector jobs. He said about 80% of them would be private sector, 20% would be government jobs, public sector. That's 20%. That's 600,000 more government payroll jobs, basically. That's, I think, 50% of the government jobs that are out there already, exclusive of the Postal Service. So it's a huge expansion of public sector works. And of course, the pay, as far as a stimulus check of one sort or another like that, as we said, as George said, that didn't work in the past. That's a little bit portion of his proposal is here as well. That won't work again. Although as much as we may want to have $500 or $1,000 more in our paycheck, that's not going to create jobs. What will create jobs is getting the private sector and the assets that are basically on the sidelines right now back into the marketplace again. And how do you do that? You do that through lowering the capital gains tax. You do that by lowering the corporate tax, make the economy in this country more competitive vis-a-vis overseas, to get the private sector initiatives going, to create private sector jobs. That's what Americans want. They don't want to be on the dole, so to speak, nor do they want to have to be always working for government sector jobs that are make-work type jobs.
Chairman Miller, those are non-starters, aren't they, for Democrats?
Well, they're non-starters for the economy. I mean, there's very few economists that think that just cutting taxes is the way to move this economy along. The fact is they've said that we must create demand. You can cut taxes, you can increase credit. Nobody is borrowing money because they wouldn't invest it because nobody's buying anything. And so we're told time and again, as you pointed out, from very conservative economists, Republican economists, Democratic economists, liberal economists, we must create the demand, and the only party that can create the demand to create the private sector jobs is the government at this stage. That's how far this economy has fallen and how desperate this country is to start to reverse the flow. We've been losing 500,000 jobs a month, and probably this month, for December, it may be much worse than that. And if we don't do do this, if we just do tax cuts, what we heard testified by Mark Zandi of economy.com was that it could be the difference between 16 million additional jobs or not in this economy by 2012. What people want to do in America is go to work and be able to support their families. And that's what President-elect Obama is addressing. That's what the stimulus package will address. I think it will have strong bipartisan support, and it will pass the Congress by the President's Day break.
Scott Garrett, do you agree with that, calendar, if you will?
President-elect Obama wanted to move very expeditiously on this. Fortunately, he has agreed, I think, to slow it down a little bit of a pace because we should have oversight. Look how quickly we moved on the whole TARP situation, spending $700 billion without a committee meeting, without an oversight, without any markup or what have you, and now we see the results of it. So many questions as to where the money dollars went to, whether the accountability. We should have at least, if not more, oversight in that situation going forward here. And remember this, President-elect Obama is certainly going into a situation that's very tough. He is inheriting a $1.2 trillion deficit, courtesy of Senator Reid and Nancy Pelosi going into this. So if spending was simply the solution, we're already deficit spending by over $1.2 trillion. How much more deficit spending do we need to do to get this economy going?
I know Chairman Miller wants to get in there and add perhaps maybe some Republicans were responsible to the White House for the situation with the deficit. But
these Republicans inherited a $1 trillion surplus, and they squandered it. They absolutely squandered it over the next 8 years. It's unbelievable. They blew the national endowment.
I'm up against the clock. Thanks to both you, Chairman Miller, Congressman Garrett. Thanks to both you. We'll be checking back in, I'm sure.
Look forward to it. Thanks so much.
Coming up next, Citigroup says we'll take new steps to help distress homeowners.